What's up? It's your boy Nate Melky Fit, and we're coming to you today with a very, very highly sought after and anticipated topic of increasing your bench press. Let's get that bench up, baby. Yeah! All right, we've broken this topic up into four subcategories. The first one we're going to be discussing is technique. Before you start thinking about other things, you need to make sure that you get your technique down to prevent injury, to have an optimal movement that will allow you to do the most weight, and those are the two main things, right?
No, yeah. No,
basically those two
you're
things.
spot on there.
Basically
So the first thing we're going to be talking about is your grip, something that people don't necessarily consider, especially with the bench press. When we're talking about grip, we're first going to be talking about width, right? We're just going to assume that you don't know how to bench press. A general rule of thumb to start off is we want to be just outside of shoulder width. Play around with this a little bit, see what feels comfortable, but generally what we find from our experience with working with newer lifters is that you generally want to go a little bit wider than what you're comfortable with. As far as wrist position goes, another big problem is people will extend their wrist. This is going to lose power, right? Because when you're thinking, we're going to be talking about tightness, other power leakages, but your wrist, you want to transfer that power straight through your arm. And if your wrist is extended, not only are you putting your wrist at a more vulnerable position, but you're not transferring that power optimally.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to show a video of us going through this stuff while we talk, correct?
Yeah, roll the B-roll.
Yeah, but so why does a wider whip?
Don't and do it for me. Now watch me whip. Kill it. Now watch me nay.
So why does a wider whip, to some degree, lead to a better bench press? If you notice, a lot of powerlifters, they have a pretty dang wide grip. They're not benching in here. They're not doing close grip or even shoulder width. They have a really wide grip. Now, let's think to ourselves, why would widening your grip lead to you being able to do more weight? Do you know, Michael?
I happen to know. So, as far as the width goes, the wider you're going, you've probably heard this before. Wider, you're going to be using more of those prime movers in your chest and your shoulders, and the more narrow you go, generally the more triceps you're going to be using. Now, when we talk about absolutely maxing your potential, your strength in your shoulders are going to be a lot stronger if you max them out than your triceps ever would be. So it makes more sense to at least devote more attention to those muscle groups. Also, widening your grip will shorten that range of motion a little bit.
Yeah.
But the reason we want to so why don't we just grip it all the way out here, right? The reason is, one, you need extreme flexibility to do that, because you can see I can't even touch my chest when I'm this wide. And also, that's what's going to cause shoulder impingement. You've probably heard of elbow flare, which we'll get to very soon.
This video is going to be very long.
Yeah.
All right, next topic, bar path. And since Michael's done a lot more research about this, and he's the one that threw in the elbow flare, he's going to talk about that. But I'm going to give a little intro. Originally, you probably have heard from powerlifters, any person that has looked up any videos on benching, keep your elbows tucked.
Yes.
Correct? So when you go down, you don't want to be going out. You don't want your elbows out. You want your elbows underneath your arm, keeping them tucked. But as I've recently been enlightened by Evolve Fit, the master himself,
No.
he has told me that there is a healthy, or to some extent, you do want elbow flare. And
Yes.
I'm going to let you explain this, because
Okay.
when people start screwing up their shoulders, I want them running to you and not blaming me.
All right, so this is a topic, like you said, that's not very well known among newer lifters, in that a general rule of thumb a lot of people will tell to beginner lifters, myself included, is keep your elbows tucked, right? And everything we do, we want it in moderation, right? The death is in the dose. So when we're talking about this, I've seen people tuck all the way in as they go down, but their grip's out here, and then they even push up. And this is creating this very awkward thing here, this angle, whatever. You want your forearm to be perpendicular to the floor when you're actually pressing. Now, why would we need elbow flare? Well, on the way down, we do want to be tucked, but we don't want it to be excessive, because when we do that, we're not only going to lose tightness, we're stealing the power off of our chest, which is arguably the most important part of the bench press.
You don't want to be benching like this.
Exactly. Now, when do you elbow flare? You don't elbow flare down, but do you elbow flare right off the chest? No. Okay, there's something that's been described more so as a J pattern. People think that when you're bench pressing, it should be straight up and straight down, like the squat looks.
We'll show it in a video.
Yes, but that's not necessarily the case, because you actually do want elbow flare, because one, it helps your leverages, but two, it helps use your shoulders, engage your shoulders more into the movement. And the shoulders, the front delts, are a very important movement to use for your bench press. So I'm getting to it. This is very long-winded. I apologize. But essentially, you're tucked on the way down, not excessively. You're pressing off your chest, and gradually you're going to flare your elbows as you push back, making kind of like this J, right? Pushing back like that. Now, when we're talking about elbow flare being bad, we're generally talking about it being premature, too early on the way down or right off the chest, and uncontrolled is another main problem.
Yeah, where you should touch it on your chest. So we kind of already talked about the J pattern. Any other lift, a squat or a deadlift, you want a straight bar path. But in a bench, say you have your arms like naturally tucked in, and then you push out. It's like naturally my body doesn't go like this. It goes from here, how I'm going a little bit slightly up. That's the natural
movement.
movement.
Push someone away.
Yeah, how you would push
How you
someone
would,
away
yeah.
is how your body was meant to press. And that's what you're doing in a bench press. So, where you want it to touch your chest. So we're not going straight down. So you don't want it high up here on your chest. Generally, a general rule of thumb is like about nipple level,
Or a little
sometimes
bit.
a little below. Now, once again, in moderation, like we talk about everything. I see some dudes, sorry power lifters, I'm talking about you, go down to their belly button.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
it's just like, maybe not belly
Maybe
button,
they
but
just
like
have saggy
some-
tits, dude. They're just all the way down.
And if you have saggy tits, make sure you take that into
Or
consideration.
maybe they're perky. No, we don't know.
All
We're
right,
giving you rule
quit
of
talking
thumbs.
about this. All right. But you don't want to go all the way down here to where now you're just in an awful
pressing.
position. Yeah. And also, I mean, we don't even talk about this, but do not belly press. If you're a big guy, do not bounce the weight off your stomach. I've also seen that in some gym fail videos or whatever the Instagram account is.
Well, we'll put one in.
Yeah. Let's get back on track. All right. You want to start with that?
Okay, sure. So another main consideration when we're talking about technique, we want to talk about power leakage. How can we be more efficient, right? We're going to get into breaking plateaus and how you should program, how you should recover. But when it ultimately comes down to it, I think it was a Greg Nuckols article before that I read before, and I think I've mentioned this to you as well, is the main difference between state placers and national placers was not necessarily their strength output. It was their technique. Power leakages, how can we maximize what we have with the strength that we have? So the first thing we're going to be talking about is tightness. Now, tightness can encompass a lot, but we're going to break this down easy for you to understand. The first one is retraction, right? So if your shoulders are in front of your chest, your shoulders are going to take over the majority of the work. However, if you retract your scapula, which are your shoulder blades, and you pull your shoulders behind, now your chest is in front of your shoulders. So your chest is going to take most of the work. Furthermore, it stabilizes the shoulder in the shoulder joint, just good for shoulder health. The second thing when we're talking about tightness, we're talking about breathing. This is not just with the bench press or the squat, but every single lift, even accessories, people overlook this aspect. On the eccentric, essentially when we're lowering down to our chest, we want to have a large breath, right? That's going to shorten our range of motion, but that's also going to help keep everything tight. And then on the concentric, when we're pushing off of our chest, we're exhaling. And in between reps, obviously you can take a breath. I don't want you to pass out mid-set.
Yeah.
And you
Don't
don't have
pass
to
out.
take that deep breath. Yeah. I don't want you to take that deep breath until you're ready about to go. After you already retracted your scapula. Nate, you want to talk about leg drive?
Yeah. Now we're gonna go into leg drive. Now leg drive's a pretty big thing that makes a difference that a lot of people don't really think about. They're like, wait, I'm benching, I'm using my upper body. What do you mean?
Why do I need to use
What
my
do you mean
legs?
my legs?
Yeah.
Like,
Some
some
people
common
think it's even cheating.
Yeah.
Which
Idiots.
is craziness.
Yeah.
They're idiots.
we laugh about that. I don't know. All right. Well, I lost my train of thought. Okay. Leg drive. Some common mistakes or people that are not optimally using leg drive is maybe putting your feet up on the bench.
Yes.
That basically takes away your leg drive. And maybe a reason behind
and
that.
furthermore, even unstabilizes yourself. What if you're benching more than your body weight and you slip? How are you going to catch yourself? You're just going to topple over like.
That would be bad.
Yeah, that would be very bad.
So a lot of people do that. Maybe the only reason you would want to do that is if you're not trying to lift maximum weight, which is not what we're talking about. If you're trying to isolate your chest, maybe to take your leg strength away from it, which once again, if we're trying to lift the most weight, we want anything we can get and like build that muscle up. But that's not what we're talking about here. So if you want to lift strong and you want to lift as heavy as possible, use your leg drive.
How do you use leg drive?
So you generally want your leg or your feet behind, I guess your hips would be a good way to describe it. You want them bent back basically as far as you can go comfortably.
Yeah.
Towards like your chest. And you want to think about, we're not going to get into whether you push through your toe or push through your heel. That could be maybe a whole different day if we do extensive research on it. But basically you want to drive your feet into the ground and push, what would be a good way to describe it? Push it back
and up.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like if this is the barbell, you're pushing this way with your feet.
So press your feet like into the ground as you push up. And your quads should be squeezing if you have good mind to muscle connection. Squeeze your quads. Just biggest thing is to think about pushing your feet into the ground away from you.
And keeping your butt on the bench.
That is key and something I am working on once the weight gets heavy.
All right.
Kill confirmed.
This is Channels Television.
A back arch. Is it cheating? No. Now, will it allow you to do more weight if learned properly?
If done properly. Yes.
If done properly, yes, it will. So, if you do not have an arch, practice it. Get an arch. It's gonna get that freaking arch going. It's gonna make you lift heavier weight.
It doesn't need to be excessive though.
Yes.
You want to explain why it wouldn't need to be excessive? What is the drawback of it being excessive?
Well, we had a little bit of disagreements upon this.
Yeah, and that's fine. You're not necessarily. Some of these things you're going to see their general guidelines. You're not necessarily going to agree on it.
So we basically came to the conclusion that a very excessive arch is going to put a lot of unnecessary strain on your back.
It's a trade-off between when you have that back arch, it's further putting your shoulder blades even further back, which is essentially stabilizing your shoulders, but at the risk of your lower back. Now, a back arch, most guys, I'm assuming, don't have like this crazy flexibility, and it's not going to be that much of a worry.
That's what I was about to say. You probably have to practice having such a significant back arch to where it's to the point that it's putting enough stress on your back to be harmful. You probably have to get that flexibility and develop that over time to begin with. So it's probably not the biggest of concerns if you're just like trying to add it, unless you're extremely flexible out the get-go. But you definitely want it. Once again, just like widening out your hand placement, getting an arch in your back brings your chest and stomach up. So therefore, your range of motion is, once again, going to be reduced. Anytime you have a smaller range of motion, you're going to be able to move heavier weight. if all things else are held constant.
Yes. And an easy way to think about this is, can you squat more ass to grass, or can you squat more quarter squat?
Yeah,
right.
It's common
The
sense
shorter
for
range
the most part.
Yes. So the last thing we're going to be talking about is imbalances. Now, imbalances are a huge thing with beginners, and they're still a concern with even intermediate and advanced lifters. So with beginners, the reason I say it's a huge thing is because you're probably dominant with one arm. You're always carrying bags, writing with one arm, whatever you're
Playing
doing.
sports with one arm.
Exactly. You're always doing it with your dominant arm. In which case, for me, it's my right arm. This right arm is going to be a lot stronger and may even be bigger. But the main thing with this is that when you go to a barbell, you're going to be pressing more with one side than the other, and that's more apparent in beginners, but even in intermediate lifters, it may not be. In which case you would go and do asymmetrical work, right? So we could use dumbbells. If you think, oh, Michael, both sides are equally strong. Shoulders, triceps, chest, all equally strong. All right, I'm gonna put you to the challenge. We're gonna take two heavy dumbbells, right, that are going to challenge you, and I wanna see both of those dumbbells move at the exact same rate, controlled, for the same amount of reps, right? And that's really gonna be able to determine. A barbell is going to help those imbalances, but dumbbells are going to help those imbalances more because they're creating each side individually and separating those stabilizer muscles in the shoulder.
So what you're saying is, one of my sides is going up quicker than the other. It's uneven. I want to fix that. So maybe, which for my accessory lifts, it's going to be asymmetric dumbbell presses for a couple weeks.
For sure.
And see how that evens it out. And say you're working, what do you want to do? The weaker side first or the stronger side first? Or does it matter, or what's your opinion on that?
So if you're going to do one side before the other and not both sides at the same time, you always want to do the weaker side first, and it's pretty apparent. If you're going for, let's say, 8 reps on your weaker side and you only get 7, well, guess what? You're only going to do 7 on your right. Now, if we did our strong side first and we got all 8 and then we got to our left and we only did 7, we'd be like, oh,
now we're
shit,
even
now
further.
we're even further
imbalance.
separating the balance.
Yeah.
And I think this goes unsaid, but just to be clear, if you're doing dumbbells and your one arm is way stronger than the other, don't pick a heavier weight for this one arm and a lighter weight for that other arm. I just need to get that out there.
If you're doing that, I want you to smack yourself in the face right now.
Maybe don't do that. Just watch
Come
all my
on, guys.
videos. Just watch all my videos.
All right.
All right.
That's pretty much the wrap on technique. Now we're gonna head into breaking plateaus.
Let's get it.